Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for a Ninja Turtle named... Mikey? Is that you? So I was scrolling Amazon the other day and I came across this set of 12 Ninja Turtle-esque figures. Even though a few of the pictures showed differently, they were upfront about the size. And if the looks ended up being the same or worse than these pictures, I knew I was in for a party. When I saw next day delivery, I was completely sold. But is this going to be $20 well spent, or is it just going to be a waste of plastic? I must admit the package was a little bit smaller than I expected it to be, about the size of my hand. So I went back to double check the listing to see how accurate it was, and, well, I guess the day after I bought it, you can no longer find it on Amazon. I've seen similar sets float around on other sites the last few days, so if you really want them, I'm sure you'll be able to find them. Once you get them out of the bag, each figure comes individually wrapped in a thin sheet of plastic. Honestly, probably to keep them from sticking together. Cause who knows how long some of these sets are gonna sit in a warehouse. But you know I'm gonna crack them open. I was honestly really surprised to see that every figure that was advertised is actually here, and even more surprised that they actually stand up while moving around this turntable. I've paid way more for single figures that can't even do that. As you probably noticed, there's a wide range of eras represented in this set, so I'm going to start with the Michael Bay versions. First up, of course, is going to be Leonardo. Overall, I'd say when you look close, the sculpt is pretty accurate to the original figure. The paint, however, seems to have been done in a hurry. It definitely lacks details and, ooh, those eyes. But I gotta say, if you were a real miniature painter, you could probably get a lot out of these figures. Next up is Donatello, and this one has a lot of little bits going on, which unfortunately makes the paint quality stand out that much more. And upon closer look, I actually had a broken hand. It popped right back in, so no big deal for such a cheap little thing. As for comparisons to the original figure, this isn't the first time we're going to see that metal bow, which seems like a weird choice to me. You're already using brown for the shell, you could just use brown for the bow. The details in the sculpt are definitely there, but the paint job just kinda hides them all up. This one is pretty much a miss. Next up is the party dude Michelangelo. Again with those shiny silver weapons. The sculpt again isn't bad, but this one is really lacking different paint colors. Seems like they kinda just gave up on that front and back shell. But he does have that gray sweatshirt wrapped around his waist, so I guess that's a good detail. We gotta bring it in on that face though. I mean, I get that they're super small, but you can't tell me that's not a Goomba from Super Mario Bros. For the last of the Bay brothers, we have Raphael. And check out the size of those size. Definitely a funny choice, but also kinda what I was hoping for with all the figures. When it comes to buying bootlegs, the weirder the better, so bring it on. Raphael seemed to have a lot more paint detail compared to Michelangelo, so that's a big plus. And like the others, the details in the sculpt are still there. He's the only one that doesn't have any paint on his feet, so that's a little bit different. But I think this might be the best one. It's a pretty blank expression with some paint dripping, but overall I think it looks okay. Next up is what I think is supposed to be Michael Bay Splinter. I couldn't find a great representation of what toy it might be based off of, but this one is close. Although I must say I'm getting a little bit more aardvark than rat. It's a simple design. Overall, not my favorite. It's fine. Next up, the most detailed figure has gotta be this Shredder. And I'd say as far as trying to recreate the original figure goes, I think they did okay. Again on this one, the simple paint job really doesn't match all the details on the figure. If you were a seasoned miniature painter, I think you could have some fun with this one. Lots of detail in the cape. The face is pretty much non-existent, kinda how you would expect from most Shredders though. Moving out of the bay, we have a couple oddball figures that don't seem to fit in with any of the other figures in the set. We'll start with this happy little Master Splinter. This one is definitely inspired by the figure from the 2006 movie, and spoiler alert, this might be actually the best figure in the whole bunch. He's got that quirky little smile, the detail in the paint is pretty spot on. He's kind of adorable, to be honest. Next up is this mystery foot soldier. With the colors they chose, I really thought it was going to be inspired by this 2012 figure, but the sculpt itself is way closer to this vintage movie star. Overall, it's a fine little mashup of the two. Proportions are a little bit weird with this one and Splinter, but I think it works for a minifigure. But now, the moment we've all been waiting for. I'm pretty sure these might be knockoffs of knockoff figures, and I cannot wait to get a closer look at all these mugs. So let's jump right in. Starting off with Leonardo, honestly it's kind of a cool pose with the katanas out in front. They were still able to paint the shell pretty well, and overall the colors are okay. I used pictures from the re-release just because it was a clearer image, but overall I think the style is pretty nice. I wish they would have tried that iconic movie star Leo smile, but this'll do. Again, the proportions are a little bit off on these, but I think that just adds to the weirdness. Next up, we have another Donatello figure. He's back with that metal bow. Honestly, the head they chose for Leo looks a lot more like the original Donatello, so your guess is as good as mine as to why they chose this toothless grin for Donnie. I guess with itty-bitty bootlegs, we can't be too picky, right? I'm honestly surprised how well they did with the pupils on these turtles. Next up is your friend and mine, Raphael. We have another set of giant-sized size, but these are looking a little bit more droopy than the others. He kind of has that side smirk going on like the original figure, and overall the paint details are looking kind of crisp actually. That is, until you take a closer look at that head. It really doesn't look all that bad, a couple missing spots here and there. I honestly thought it would be worse. Next up is Michelangelo, and I think I've finally placed who he reminds me of. Anyone else picturing this version of Teddy from Bob's Burgers? No? Okay, maybe I'm the only one. Again, he has those all-metal chucks, which I think is an odd choice, but I guess they really wanted that shiny silver for the handles. Mikey should really have the closed mouth that Donnie had, but whatever. When it comes to bootlegs, you can't be picky. If I have to choose, I think my favorites from this set were definitely the movie star-inspired figures, as well as that 2006 Splinter. Overall, these turned out way better than I expected, which I have to admit I am kinda disappointed by. But in the end, I actually think they'd be a fun addition to your collection. Let me know what you think.